As a kid, I grew up on multiple sources of media. I grew up watching animes on Toonami, one of them being Dragon Ball Z. And I also grew up on other stuff like Sailor Moon, TMNT, Digimon Adventures 1 and 2, and Power Rangers. For games, I was really into Sonic Adventure, Crash Bandicoot. I even watched my brother and sister play Final Fantasy, and I also got into Pokemon Stadium as well. Yes, I was a Pokemon fan at some point. But another game resonated with me. And for a lot of reasons, that game forever was, or called in other places, including its original homeland, Japan, Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio was a game developed by a small group called Smilebit and was published by Sega. It was released in 2000 on October on the Sega Dreamcast, which was on its last legs. But it was also remembered by a lot of people as being one of Sega's greatest games, and Dreamcast being Sega's last greatest systems, or consoles. You know what I mean. Jet Set Radio was inspired by a lot of influence from the late 90s pop culture and stuff like Fight Club, that had an anti-establishment themes like Fight Club. And it also had a lot of 1980s American hip-hop culture, like the graffiti. Also, side note, this was one of the first games to ever use cell shading, and this is mainly due to the team's disappointment in Sega's abundance of fantasy and 2D into their games. So already off the bat, Jet Set Radio already has a legacy, and one of them is being the first to use cell shading, which would go on to become a main staple in a lot of things like video games and movies. Jet Set Radio is one of my favorite games that I ever played, and this is from someone who never played it until 2007. Yeah, that's right. Until 2007, I had only watched my siblings play Jet Set Radio, but never played it until I got older. It was one of my best experiences I ever played. Yeah, the gameplay leaves a lot to be desired, and I will get into that, but the game is also just pretty to look at. Like, right from the graphics to how the cover looks, the game has a lot of style, and that's mainly because of Ryuta Uda and also Eric Hayes, who did the logo and the graffiti art for the games. The game also has a very good story as well. Well, it's basic, but I still loved it. It's about a bunch of Rudies who are expressing themselves to the world by spraying graffiti and marking it as their territory. However, they're being stopped and prosecuted by the Rokaku group and the Rokaku police, who are doing everything in their power to stop you from tanks, to helicopters, and seems kind of crazy, but anyway, now let's talk about why I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack is fire. Like, do I need to say any more? This game has some of the best music I've ever heard in any game. It's mainly because of Hideki Nagamura. His music leaves a lot of songs stuck in my head, and that's because he used a sample from other songs, but also because of how damn catchy they are. That's Enough, Let Mom Sleep, Sneak Man, Humming on the Bassline, Rock It On. They're some of his best, and there are plenty in this soundtrack that he did that are still bangers. Davin Soul's also great. Upset Attack, On the Bowl, but his best is Yappy Feet. Yappy Feet gets you hype into noise reductions. It has that funky tune that which just highlights the Bittencho night and its high stakes and getting pots back and trying to spray the noise tanks. Sadly, it's not in the 2012 version, and honestly, that kind of sucks because what made noise reduction so great of a Tagger's boss is because of that soundtrack, and it just doesn't leave that much of an impact on the 2012 one, which is replaced by Yellow Beam. Also, another favorite of mine is Guitar Vader's Magical Girl and Super Brothers. Super Brothers is a song which I believe, and I think by many, is basically a Mario reference. I mean, listen to the lyrics. Just listen to this for a second. You see? But also, when we get to, in the American version in Jet Grind Radio, when you get Q and Combo, you go to these flashback stages, and they play Dracula by Rob Zombie, Just Got Wicked by Cold, Slow by Professional Murder Music, and Improvised by Jurassic Park. In De La Jet Set Radio, there's Many Styles, A Perfect Recipe for Afro. There's plenty. Jet Set Radio's music left such an impact. I can hear a lot of their music being played in some YouTube videos that I've watched, and you could tell that these people grew up on Jet Set Radio and its music. Like, just listen to humming on the bass line for a minute. Now, Jet Set Radio's gameplay, while I enjoyed it, I can't argue that it's okay. But I could only do so much with an X button in the joystick. It is fun to spray graffiti while cops are chasing you, though. I do love tricks to get to a jet, but, well, there is really no buts. I love the game, but I will say it's not perfect. Like how the characters are just bland. They're basically just, like, reskins of other characters. Even though I love them, still, this game left such an impact on me and plenty of other people. There are plenty of other voice actors like Zeno Robinson or Kagi who are fans of Jet Set Radio. And I think there was even a Jet Set Radio TV show that was getting proposed for a minute, but Sega was on board for it, but I think it kind of fell through because, I don't know, I don't think there was that much of an audience for Jet Set Radio, when I think it's kind of bullcrap, because Jet Set Radio does have an audience. And as I mentioned on Jet Set Radio's impact, it influenced many other games, including ones that have been inspired by the game, like Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is a great example of that. Me and my brother play Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, and we both agree that it's basically Jet Set Radio Future, or Jet Set Radio 3. You could tell the people who created this game are such huge fans of it. To the point, I think Hideki Nagamura also did music for it. Prove me wrong. But, I think he did. But, don't quote me on that. Now, let's get into Jet Set Radio Future. Jet Set Radio Future is like the original, but better in terms of gameplay and story. No longer you can just use the X button, but you can also do certain tricks and just spray graffiti while not having to worry about the cops chasing you. And speaking of cops, they are on your asses like always. Using the same tanks, helicopters, man. Jesus. They will do anything just because some kids are spraying graffiti. This game is also a bit longer too. Instead of 3 chapters, it's 10, and the stakes are higher more than ever. After Chapter 5, you no longer have to spray graffiti as part of the game. Spraying graffiti was now part of the back burner. You have to do things like trying to find Yo-Yo, bum rushing some noise tank copies, defeating the noise tanks, getting Clutch after he stole your graffiti souls, trying to stop the timers and save Yo-Yo, defeat the golden rhinos. The stakes are way up here now. We also have Goji played by Charles Martinet. If you don't know who he is, then you're not a Mario fan.
All of you, heed my words. My name is Rokaku Goji.
Jet Set Radio Future is also one of my favorites. It was actually the game I played the most before I started playing Jet Grind Radio. It was something I played after school, and it was a game that I played when I first got my Xbox after I told my mom and dad can I get an Xbox, and they told me that yes, if only I learned how to tie my shoes. And guess what? I did. And I started playing Jet Set Radio Future like there's no tomorrow after school on a Friday night. But this game also has one of my favorite endings. And it's a theme that isn't talked about in Jet Set Radio. It's about freedom, expressing yourself through art. And that's why I love this game. Underneath the chaos and trying to escape the man, this game is mainly about art and how we shouldn't silence those who express their freedom through art. You know what I mean? How graffiti souls are the symbol of Tokyo's freedom. But yeah, nah, graffiti is illegal. Do not try this. But I think DJ K says it better. So let me show you. But yeah, that's my video. I wanted to put this out here for a while, but I never had the time. But here it is. Thank you again, and like always, be sure to like and subscribe. And also, I have an interview with an indie creator coming up real soon. So I'm going to get ready for that. I'm going back to do my annual interviews with creators and animators. Thank you again, guys. And be always, well, you know what to do. Peace!